I'm Ian Masters, and this is Background Briefing, and I'm now joined by Colonel Andrew Bacevich, who is a retired U.S. Army colonel and currently a professor of international relations and history at Princeton University. His books include American Empire, The Realities and Consequences of U.S. Diplomacy, The New American Militarism, How Americans Are Seduced by War, The Long War, A New History of U.S. National Security Policy Since World War II, and The Limits of Power, The End of American Exceptionalism. His newest book, just out in paperback, is Washington Rules, America's Path to Permanent War. Andrew Bacevich, we are now in a third war, although it does seem that the U.S. and the President has been pretty much good to his word by pulling out and handing this over to NATO, and now we find that there are divisions within NATO, with the British and the French calling for a more vigorous intervention, and meanwhile on the ground we appear to have a stalemate with the worst possible outcome of either of a divided country with Gaddafi still in power in one half of it.
Well, certainly the war is not going as the people who launched this intervention expected. My guess is that they thought it was going to be a brief episode producing a fairly neat and tidy conclusion, and we can now see that that's not going to be the case.
Do you see then this, whether wittingly or unwittingly, is another example of America's permanent war?
Well, I think so. I mean, my view is that even though almost surely the Obama administration's motives differ here from the Bush administration's motives in invading Iraq, there is an important similarity, and the similarity is that that administration and this administration and American administrations going back to Jimmy Carter have all operated on the assumption that somehow it is through the use of American military power that we can sort out the problems of this part of the world. The use of American military power has repeatedly led to disappointment, frustration, unintended consequences that we don't like, but one president after another keeps going back, reaching for the sword, somehow expecting that we're going to get a different outcome. So in that sense, yes, I think that the Libya intervention is a manifestation of our penchant for ongoing war.
Well, I thank you so much for joining us here today in Los Angeles, Colonel Andrew Bacevich.
Thank you.
Again, I've been speaking with Colonel Andrew Bacevich, who is a professor of international relations and history at Boston University. His newest book, just out in paperback, is Washington Rules, America's Path to Permanent War.